At that time, the black woman and the white man were the freest people in the southern states. And we knew that if something hadn't been done by the women, there wouldn't be anything done.
The Women's Political Council, black women at the vanguard of social activism in 1950s Montgomery, Alabama. During a 15-year period between 1946 and 1960, black middle-class and professional women in Montgomery, Alabama organized the Women's Political Council, or WPC, as a vehicle to create social and political change. These highly respected and very capable women executed a program of political education. They developed strategies to challenge racial discrimination, and they worked to prepare the black community to be full participants in the political life of their communities. In 1955, as part of the WPC's strategy to challenge racial discrimination, the organization registered its greatest contribution when it initiated a boycott of the Montgomery City bus system, a protest that is credited with jump-starting the direct action phase of the 1950s and 1960s civil rights movement. In 1946, Mary Fair Burks, chair of the English department at Alabama State College, now Alabama State University, organized an African-American alternative to the all-white League of Women Voters. Burks organized the Women's Political Council to address major issues facing the black community.
Well, you know, the Women's Political Council was started with Mary Fair Burks.
Okay.
And this was 5 years, before the boycott broke out altogether. We were working. Actually, when I came here for my first job, Mary Fair had organized the Women's Political Council. And after joining the council, there just wasn't any turning back. Mm-hmm. It was, I guess the time was right where people were tired of being mistreated, and black and white separate everything, and not getting any of the things for which that justice would see that you should have, And so it was easy for me to fight.
The 40 women who responded to Burke's call became the founding members of the Women's Political Council. Among these women were Cynthia Alexander, Elizabeth Arrington, Sadie Brooks, Albertine Campbell, Mary Cross, Faustine Dunn, Frazette Lee, Jewel Lewis, Thelma Morris, Geraldine Nesbitt, Ivy Pettis, Zoline Pierce, Louise Streety, Cleonia Taylor, Ruth Bynes, Irene West, Bertha Williams, and the wife of the Alabama State College president, Portia Trenholm. Professor Joanne Robinson, who took a position in the English department at Alabama State College in the fall of 1949, joined Professor Burks in the WPC along with other ASU faculty at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. There, she connected with a network of self-assured middle-class black women.
We organized the Women's Council. Within a month's time, we had over 100 members. We organized a second chapter and a third, so we had more than 300 members in that organization. We had members in every elementary, junior high, and senior high school. We had them organized from federal and state and local jobs. Wherever there were more than 10 blacks employed, we had a member there. And we were organized to the point that we knew that in a matter of hours, we could corral the whole city.
Robinson emerged from this network of accomplished women to become president of the WPC. At mid-century, white Montgomery moved to codify the system of segregation. The Montgomery City Code of 1952 stipulated that segregation would be enforced on city buses, at food establishments, and at gaming outlets where Negroes and white persons were not to play together. Facing emphatic white support for racial segregation, the WPC did not seek to attack the separation of the races head-on. They only sought to make the system of segregation more equitable. Under Robinson, the WPC continued to seek relief before the City Commission. Robinson led a delegation of women to request that buses stop at every corner in black neighborhoods, just as they did in white areas. The women also took the opportunity to complain about bus drivers who habitually cursed at black riders, calling them coons, baboons, and niggers. Almost daily, stories made their way through an informal communication network where some black man, woman, or child was abused for not having correct change or for talking back to the bus driver. In 1953 alone, there were 30 bus complaints lodged with the WPC. On Thursday, December 1st, after the arrest of Rosa Parks, Robinson met in the basement of Dexter Avenue Church with WPC members Mary Fair Burks, Irene West, and Eretta Adair. The women agreed to a boycott and then approved language for a boycott announcement. After a call from Joanne Robinson, E.D. Nixon urged a group of mostly black ministers to meet and discuss the proposed boycott. The WPC met at the same time in the same church, and in separate rooms the women and the men agreed to support the boycott. Robinson recruited 2 of her students and at around midnight made her way to the campus of Alabama State College, where they produced thousands of flyers calling for a one-day boycott of the city buses. The next morning, Robinson, her students, and members of the WPC began distributing the flyers across Montgomery. A second meeting occurred at Mount Zion AME Zion Church. A new organization was created with the name of Montgomery Improvement Association, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was selected as its president. With black ministers now fully on board, flyers were distributed at Sunday church. Moreover, E.D. Nixon strategically leaked word of the boycott to the Montgomery Advertiser, and a front page story appeared in the Sunday edition. Nearly the entire black community observed the boycott, and on that December 5th night, 5,000 black supporters attended a citywide mass meeting. Those in attendance endorsed the leadership of the MIA and vowed to continue the protest until their demands for better treatment were met.
Monday night, the ministers held their meeting at Holt Street Baptist Church, and they voted unanimously to continue the boycott. And instead of it lasting one day, as the Women's Council had planned it, it lasted for 13 months.
What kept it going?
The spirit, the desire, the injustices that had been endured by thousands of people through the years. I think the people were fed up. They had reached the point that they knew there was no return, that they had to do it or die. And that's what kept it going. It was the sheer spirit for freedom, for the feeling of being a man and a woman.
King, as the newly designated MIA president, tapped WPC member Maud Ballou to serve as his personal secretary. The WPC's Erna Dungy was elected to serve as the MIA's financial secretary, while the WPC's Martha Johnson became the MIA secretary clerk. King also tasked Joanne Robinson with editing the MIA newsletter, and Hazel Gregory, another WPC member, took on the responsibility of running the MIA office. Professor Robinson and A.W. West were also drafted to serve on the 35-member MIA executive board, and the 2 women sat with King on the 12-person MIA negotiating team. In February, when the city indicted 89 boycott leaders for violating a state anti-boycott law, the prominent roles played by Robinson and West landed them in jail, alongside WPC member Eretta Adair. After a year-long boycott, bus segregation in Montgomery was declared unconstitutional in the Browder v. Gale case. Here, the United States Supreme Court upheld an earlier federal district court ruling, outlawing segregation on the Montgomery public transportation system.
The spirit, the desire, the injustices that had been endured by thousands of people through the years. I think the people were fed up. They had reached the point that they knew there was no return, that they had to do it or die. And that's what kept it going. It was the sheer spirit for freedom, for the feeling of being a man and a woman.
The boycott, the combination of nonviolence, mass mobilization, and litigation drew the city's black community together, catapulted Reverend King onto the national stage, and ushered in a new and dramatic direct action phase in America's long civil rights struggle. The WPC disbanded around 1960. However, these women demonstrated the power of collective action. They illustrated the efficacy of dogged determination, and the women illustrated possibilities for a new generation of social and political activists.